Venezuela's National Electoral Council updated the results of the parliamentary elections held on Sunday. In the United States, 17 states filed a report with the U.S. Supreme Court supporting the Texas motion to overturn the results of the year presidential election. Azerbaijan's President Ilham Aliyev and his Turkish counterpart Recep Tayyip Erdogan attended a military parade in Baku. From the headquarters of TeleSUR English in Havana, Cuba, this is From the South. I'm Gladys Quesada. And Venezuela's National Electoral Council updated the results of the parliamentary elections held on Sunday. The electoral body announced the results in a tweet. As of Thursday, December the 10th, the United Socialist Party of Venezuela obtained 253 seats from the National Assembly. The Democratic Action Party follows it with 11 parliamentary seats. The Advanced Progressive Party achieved 3 seats and the Democratic Party 3. Other parties managed to accumulate 4 seats. In Venezuela, the voting process of the indigenous peoples concluded. The ballots casting process to choose the 3 deputies who will represent them in the new National Assembly according to their customs and traditions. The process for the election of the indigenous representatives to the National Assembly began last August and was held in 10 states of the country. According to special regulations defined by the National Electoral Council, the indigenous peoples conclude the community assemblies in September to choose the representatives who participated in the election of the 3 indigenous lawmakers who will represent them in parliament. The 3 elected indigenous representatives will complete the 277 parliamentarians who will make up the legislative branch that will begin its cycle on January the 5th, 2021.
For the first time as indigenous people to elect our representatives. Previously, we did not have that participation. Now we do. For the first time in history, we are the first to elect our representatives at the national level, the regional level, and the municipal level.
All the Venezuelan people will have the opportunity.
And the president of the National Electoral Council, Indira Alfonso, described as successful the electoral process of the indigenous peoples to choose their parliamentary representatives to the new National Assembly and announced to offer results as of Thursday after the closing of the voting stations and the total disclosure of the scrutiny reports. The president of the Bolivarian Republic of Venezuela, Nicolás Maduro Moros, praised the indigenous communities for the developing of their parliamentary elections. The head of state tweeted, "Today we had an extraordinary election day in which the indigenous peoples participated, a transcendental event that is proof of the dignity constituted, expanded and renewed in the revolution. With their vote, they decide what kind of voices they want in the National Assembly. Congratulations."
All the Venezuelan people will have the opportunity today, December the 6th, to go.
On Thursday, Bolivia's Chamber of Deputies approved the large fortune tax bill. The tax will be applied on those whose wealth exceeds $4.3 million. The newly approved bill will impact 0.01% of Bolivia's population, achieving a potential collection of $14.4 million, which will be destined for social spending. According to Bolivia's Minister of Economy and Finance, the nation is one of the countries in Latin America with a considerably low tax base, meaning that tax revenues are minimal. Luis Arce announced the tax bill since the beginning of his campaign and ratified after his victory in the general elections on October 18th. In Argentina, the voluntary termination of pregnancy draft the bill will be debated this Thursday in Congress, only lacking the support of 6 congressmen for the approval of the project. The Chamber of Deputies of Argentina will debate this Thursday the project of law of regulation of the access to the voluntary interruption of the pregnancy after the Parliamentary Commission discussed the topic in question. The deputies will have to vote in a session that experts foresee will extend until Friday. If the yes option is won by a majority of the votes, the legislation will pass to the Senate that will meet to give the final approval of the project. The session will be attended by 123 lawmakers who have already taken a stance in favor, 109 against, and 24 who remain without vote. With 129 votes, the law will pass the required amount of ballots. And the relatives and fellow comrades of the detained, disappeared and executed citizens during the civic military dictatorship in Chile rejected the judicial ruling that set free 61 former agents of the National Intelligence Directorate implicated in these events. The relatives of the victims rejected the decision that came from the 8th Chamber of the Court of Appeals. They shouted out, "No more judges in complicity with impunity," in front of the courthouse. The demonstrators considered the ruling as a serious setback in the defense and promotion of human rights in the country. In 1975, all the officials involved in the massacre of 119 leftist militants, known as Operation Colombo, were acquitted and none of them condemned paid with the jail time. In this context, the demonstrators demand justice for the cover-up of the murders. And the systematic violence continues in Colombia. This Wednesday, the lawyer Freddy Agustín Barragán was murdered after being intercepted while driving through the city of Cúcuta. The lawyer, who was part of the Ombudsman office, was shot more than 17 times in Cúcuta's downtown. After the aggressors fled, Barragán was taken to a clinic, but due to the severity of his injuries, he died in the emergency department. With Barragán's murder, Colombia now registers 289 social leaders and human rights defenders killings so far in 2020. Local authorities stated that they will file up the case for a more detailed investigation. And we'll be right back after this very short break, so don't go away. Welcome back to From the South. In the United States, 17 states filed a report with the U.S. Supreme Court supporting the Texas motion to overturn the results of this year's presidential election. Texas received support from the state of Missouri, Alabama, Arkansas, Florida, Indiana, Kansas, Louisiana, Mississippi, Montana, Nebraska, North and South Dakota, South Carolina, Tennessee, Utah, Oklahoma, and West Virginia. The state of Texas previously sued Georgia, Michigan, Pennsylvania, and Wisconsin, accusing them of making unconstitutional challenges and changes to the election laws this year. According to the lawsuit, those states where Democratic candidate Joe Biden won a majority of votes used the COVID-19 pandemic as a pretext to justify bypassing federal and state election laws and the illegal approval of last-minute changes altering the results of the 2020 general election. And the U.S. Food and Drug Administration advisors will meet Thursday to scrutinize Pfizer's data on its COVID-19 vaccine for any red flags and oversights. The meeting is one final hurdle before an expected decision to greenlight the shot for use in millions of U.S. citizens. The public review comes as UK regulators investigate 2 cases of allergic reaction to the vaccine. Safety will be top of mind for the panel of medical experts who will vote on whether to endorse the vaccine. They will also address unknown about the vaccine effectiveness in certain groups. A final FDA decision on the first shots could follow within days. In the United States, Johns Hopkins University reported nearly 227,000 COVID-19 cases and more than 3,200 deaths in the last 24 hours. According to the university, the latest figures bring the total number of cases to over 15.9 million, while the death toll now stands at nearly 297,000. Health authorities have predicted an increase of cases due to the many trips made across the country to celebrate Thanksgiving. The state of California, Texas, Florida, and New York are the hardest hit by the epidemic. In Italy, according to a study by the State University of the Lombardy published in the journal Emerging Infectious Disease, a 4-year-old boy in Milan already had the coronavirus on November 21, 2019. Local media report what could be the patient zero in Italy, proving that the disease was present in the country long before the end of February, when the first cases began to be confirmed. According to the study, on November 13, the child was taken to an emergency room with respiratory symptoms and vomiting. On December 1st, some spots very similar to those of measles appeared on the skin. On December 5th, 14 days after symptoms appeared, the boy was tested for measles and kept in the hospitals according to the protocol of measles and rubella surveillance network. The 4-year-old child tested negative for measles and was then tested for COVID. The results came back positive. And the European Central Bank unleashes more stimulus to help the Eurozone confront a second coronavirus wave, with President Christine Lagarde warning that the outlook remains fraught with uncertainty over the pandemic's evolution and the rollout of vaccines.
Measures taken today will contribute to preserving favorable financing conditions over the pandemic period, thereby supporting the flow of credit to all sectors of the economy, underpinning economic activity, and safeguarding medium-term price stability. At the same time, uncertainty remains high, including with regard to the dynamics of the pandemic and the timing of vaccine rollouts. The risks surrounding the euro area growth outlook remain tilted to the downside, but have become less pronounced. While the news about the prospects for vaccine rollouts in the near future is encouraging, downside risks remain related to the implication of the pandemic for economic and financial conditions.
A fire ripped through the warehouse occupied by migrants near Barcelona, killing at least 3 people and injuring 19, including several who jumped from the building to escape the flames. The blaze broke out at around 9 p.m. on Wednesday in an industrial area of Badalona, a Barcelona suburb where up to 200 migrants lived. Fire Chief David Borrell said firefighters backed by sniffer dogs and drones had so far found 2 bodies outside the 3-story building and 1 corpse on the last floor. The fire chief added that they could not rule out finding more bodies. Catalonia's Civil Protection Agency said in a tweet that out of 19 injured, 7 are in serious conditions. The blaze has been brought under control on Thursday morning, 12 hours after it broke out.
People were sleeping on the terrace because they have nowhere to go. But with the cold, you can stay outside in this cold. So they came here, that's how it is. I was on the balcony, watching for other explosions and whether we should leave, but we were told no, that for the moment it was okay. There it is, we went home, we closed everything because the smell and the smoke came in. We said hello and everything, so there wasn't much problem. It is true that there was a lot of that for many years, but really there was no problem.
And China's Foreign Ministry said Thursday that the country strictly abides by the agreement signed with India and its commitment to resolving border issues through negotiation and consultation.
The merits of the China-India border situation are quite clear, the responsibility of which lies entirely on the Indian side. China always strictly abides by the agreements. 2 sides have signed earlier and stayed committed to resolving border situations through negotiation and consultation and to maintaining peace and tranquility in the border areas. In the meantime, China's determination to safeguard its territorial sovereignty is unwavering. We hope that the two sides will act in the same direction and do more things that are conducive to unity, cooperation and common development. It is true that the current China-India relationship is facing difficulties and challenges, but China's policy towards India remains unchanged. We have always believed that as two neighboring countries and emerging economies with populations of over 1 billion, it is in the fundamental interests of the two countries and peoples to maintain good relations.
And we have more stories coming up after this final short break, so stay with us. Welcome back to From the South. Azerbaijan's President Ilham Aliyev and his Turkish counterpart Recep Tayyip Erdogan attended a military parade in Baku to mark Azerbaijan's military victory against Armenia in the Nagorno-Karabakh conflict. The military parade was held in Baku's Liberty Square. Aliyev called Erdogan as a brother in his speech and thanked the Turkish president for saying from the beginning that Turkey will always be on Azerbaijan's side. Erdogan attended the celebration with his wife and his government and Justice and Development Party senior staff. Erdogan said Azerbaijan saving its land from occupation does not mean that the struggle is over, adding that the struggle carried out in the political and military areas will continue on many other fronts. Hostilities began on September 27th and ended 6 weeks later with a Moscow brokered deal under which Armenia ceded to Baku parts of the disputed territory. Another large U.S. convoy with oil looted from Al-Hashaka province in northeast Syria has left for Iraq. According to local sources, the convoy consists of 6 vehicles, including tankers and refrigerated trucks. The U.S. convoy left from the oil fields in Armenia, north of Al-Shaka, to enter Iraqi territory through the illegal border crossing of Al-Walid. This new theft of oil occurs 3 days after the U.S. sent a convoy of 43 vehicles with military and logistical supplies, including tankers from Iraq, through the Al-Walid crossing to Al-Hashaka, an area rich in oil resources. And on Thursday, Malala Maiwand, a female TV anchor, was shot and killed by gunmen in eastern Afghanistan early morning. The attackers opened fire on Maiwand's car soon after she left her house in the eastern Nangarhar province. No one has claimed responsibility for the attack, but an Islamic State affiliate is headquartered in eastern Afghanistan and has claimed most of the recent attacks on civilians in the country. The Taliban also operates in the area. In addition to work as a TV and radio presenter, Maiwand was also an activist who advocated for the rights of Afghan women and the children. Last month, 2 Afghan journalists were killed in separate bombings in Afghanistan. And South Africa reported a second wave of coronavirus as the number of cases continued to increase. The country recorded over 6,700 COVID-19 cases in the last 24 hours, setting a record of the number of daily confirmed cases. To this date, South Africa registers more than 828,000 infections and more than 22,000 deaths. The African nation is the most affected by the pandemic in the continent. South Africa's Health Minister, Zweli Msike, said he expects a faster increase in COVID-19 cases with a higher peak than in the first wave. During a press conference in Tehran, the secretary of the Iran System Disarmament Council, Mohsen Reza, said that the weapon used to assassinate the leading Iranian nuclear scientist belonged to NATO. Reza quoted the words of the Chief of Staff of the Armed Forces of Iran, Mohammad Hossein Bagheri. He also said that during the last few days and years, various terrorist organizations repeatedly tried to martyrize the scientist Mohsen Faridazeh, but their efforts had been foiled. The influential Iranian scientist played a leading role in the country's defense industry. He was killed last November 27 in a terrorist attack near Tehran. The investigations to find the authors of the attack continue, and the results are still awaited. And we have come to the end of this news brief. But remember, you can find this and many other stories on our website at telesurenglish.net. Also, if you feel so inclined, please follow us in social media, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and Telegram. For TeleSUR English, I'm Gladys Quesada. Thank you for watching.